Yes, welcome in. Badgers getting ready for a rivalry game. The Iowa Hawkeyes coming to town on Saturday night to take on the Badgers, who have lost 3 straight. They have not beaten a Power 4 team since last October. They are 0-8 in that stretch. We're going to get into all of it. They are also an underdog here for the first time since 1997 against Iowa at home. They are 3.5-point underdogs. That 1997 game, the first time they had beaten Iowa in a very long time. So they were 8.5-point underdogs. This one, they're 3.5. We'll get into our picks a little bit later on. I finally had a better week than Jesse. Not by much at all, actually, just a game. But we'll get into our picks later. We're also going to get into what this game means. We'll talk about what success looks like and how this game plays out, Jesse. But they put a whole lot of emphasis on this game in the offseason. I would say I'm not calling it a singular focus, but it was a major focus, both on the field during spring ball and fall camp, but also off the field and how they reshaped their defense. We'll get into that too. And as I said, we'll make our picks. Before we jump into any of that, as a reminder for those listening, we do have a YouTube channel. Go check it out, Camp YouTube channel. Subscribe, and we have our episodes up there. If you'd prefer to watch Jesse's face, that's where you can see it. And
my face after you asked me a question that came out of nowhere.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you're welcome. By the way, because we always need a little surprise in our lives. But go check that out. Subscribe. It really does help us as a show continue to do what we want to do. And BadgerConnect.com is also where you can find all of Jesse's work. And obviously, you have your game preview story up right now.
It will be
correct.
It will be. Still working on it. No, that's okay. Yeah, got obviously some basketball coverage, volleyball, and plenty of football. Obviously, Iowa and Wisconsin on Saturday night, so you can read whatever may happen that night on late on Saturday night up at Badger Connect.
Apologies. But yes, BadgerConnect.com. Check it out. All right, let's jump into this. What does success look like for the Badgers as they try to reclaim the Heartland Trophy for the first time since 2021?
The most big picture look here is you damn well better win this game. This is not a Alabama or Michigan situation where we talk about, can you just hang around into the second half? This is a matchup that you spent the entire offseason conditioning for, this and the Minnesota game. And I know we'll get into more specifics of that, but nothing's gone your way for a very long time. Iowa has had your number, won 3 straight games in this series, and I don't see any other wins coming this month. They've got to go play the number 1 team in the country next week in Ohio State, and then number 3 on the road at Oregon. So there's a number of reasons why this is so important, but success to me looks like there's so many things they have to do well, but Iowa's defense is going to come out and play quintessential Iowa defense. They've got, I think they're 12th in the country in total defense. They're 4th in the country in run defense. So Wisconsin's got to figure out how to establish the run, which has been tremendously challenging, especially when you've got Hunter Simmons in there. Not that he can't convert in the passing game, but you need to be able to help him. So I don't know what this looks like, in part because I think it's unreasonable to expect 10+ play touchdown drives. Can you get an occasional big play, which they have not been able to do? And defensively, they have to show up. They've got to match Iowa's strengths defensively, because I anticipate this being a low-scoring game. It's funny, on Monday I was guessing what the over-under was going to be. I think they had it at 37.5. It almost wouldn't have mattered what number they picked. I would have taken the under. So those are a few of the things, but you've got to play to your strengths. You've got to play the best game you've played, and you have to beat Iowa. You just have to.
You do. And as you mentioned, we'll get to some of the stuff Wisconsin did here in the offseason to prepare for this one. I think injuries certainly play a role here. Wisconsin most likely not going to have Billy Edwards Jr., so you're going to be starting Hunter Simmons for a second straight game. How does he look in a second opportunity? And this one is at home. He didn't really try and threaten teams down the field, or he didn't try and threaten Michigan down the field very often. The one big shot that he took, or at least when the game was still in doubt, was the one to Vinny Anthony that was intercepted, even though obviously that was pass interference that wasn't called. That ball still probably should not have been thrown in that direction. But again, you have to take shots. And I will say, I mean, during fall camp, I thought that was one thing that I don't know that he was great at, was taking some of those shots down the field. I don't know that he was the one that was hitting on a bunch of those ones when we had a chance to watch practice in fall camp. That said, you have to be able to threaten them, because there's just no way you're ever going to establish the run if people don't believe you can beat them over their heads. So Wisconsin has the speed on the outside with Vinny Anthony and Jaden Ballard, and certainly with Tretch in the slot, and even, we'll see with Tyrell Henry. You have athletes on the outside to take some of those shots, and if you don't, no defense is going to respect you. Michigan, for some reason, respected them on that first drive. Playing off Vinny Anthony like they did, and you were able to get the ball out to him, and he had like a 17-yard run on that first drive against Michigan. I don't know how many of those opportunities they will have this Saturday night. So that's part of it. Also, injuries and Jake Renfro, is he healthy? If not, could they start the same offensive line for the first time all year, right? Where you have Davis Hines in at center, and Kerry Kadanko at right guard, and then the normal people at left tackle, left guard, and right tackle. We'll see. But if Jake Renfro is back, that might be a step in the right direction for them as an offensive line as well. The other thing on the other side, I was going to be without their leading rusher. Two of their running backs are out, but their leading rusher is out, and their leading tackler is out. And probably most importantly, the quarterback is hurting, coming off an ankle injury that he suffered against Indiana. I called him Gronkowski in the press conference, but Gronowski, the transfer, who they had a huge expectations for him coming in. They thought he was going to revolutionize everything that they were doing offensively and give them something unique, and it hasn't been that way. Came up from the FCS level and was really good. Was it South Dakota State that he led to a couple of national titles? So they are hurting as well. And his ability to run the ball is a huge part of his game. And if he's got that ankle injury, how much is that going to be involved there? We saw what happened last year with Brendan Sullivan really being able to, challenge Wisconsin with his legs, and that whole mess trying to stop the run. But what does he look like? I think is also a huge question mark.
I think it's fair to say every indication is points are going to be at a premium in this game. And again, Iowa's defense has been really sound. Wisconsin has had some issues here of late, but their defense is better than it was the last couple of years. And so it's going to come down, I think, to some of the small things, and maybe obvious, but the turnover battle, the field position battle, which Iowa has generally been fantastic on special teams, because I would anticipate this being a one score or one possession type of game in the end. So can Wisconsin have the mental fortitude and toughness and execution to pull this off?
Yeah, I mean, the field position battle, you think back to that 2015 game, not 2015 game, the 2023 game where it was 15-6. That's what the final score ended up being. Torrey Taylor was amazing every time I felt like he played Wisconsin, but he really has such a huge role, and Iowa's special teams have such a huge role in affecting games because their defense is good, but they are so much better when the other team has to go 90 yards. And that is exactly what Wisconsin was asked to do quite a bit. The other aspect of this is, for the most part, Iowa hasn't turned the ball over. And when they don't beat themselves, again, you're setting up very long drives that you're forced to go 11 and 12 plays, especially if you can't get anything explosive going. And Wisconsin just hasn't been able to do that. You think about that 2023 game, Wisconsin's defense was pretty good, save for one play. It was an 82-yard touchdown by LaShawn Williams. The rest of it was actually just fine and just exactly what you would expect from Wisconsin's defense. They were plenty good enough to win that game, but offensively just couldn't get anything going, and they lose Tanner Mordecai and all that good stuff, and the first of the quarterback injuries. But special teams, you're right, plays a huge role, and obviously Torrey Taylor not there anymore, but they have another Aussie that is not on his level, but still very, very talented in terms of being able to flip a field. And Wisconsin special teams, I would say, has been hit and miss, maybe hit and miss. They've had a kick blocked in the last 2 games, both in, or I should say a punt blocked in each of the last 2 games. I know the Michigan one ended up going like 15 or 20 yards down the field, but he definitely got a piece of it. And we know how big the play was against Maryland when they blocked that punt. So Wisconsin's defense has to be buttoned, or excuse me, special teams has to be buttoned up.
Yeah, I was going to make you work for it, and eager to see what Wisconsin has right now, because I don't think there's any shortage of motivation for anyone who was here a year ago. And even the guys who came in understand, or to some degree understand, the significance of this because of how much last year was discussed. So I know we talked about this probably after the Alabama loss, but when you look at the rest of the schedule, how many opponents do you look at, and this is externally, and say it is feasible, it is realistic that Wisconsin is going to be on that level and potentially get a win? There's not a lot of those, and this is one of them.
I also think, and we definitely talked about this before the season, we don't know what teams are going to look like in November. So it was a little bit early to sit there and say, oh, gosh, I don't know that they're going to have any shot against Indiana or Illinois, just because you weren't sure if what they did last year was going to carry over to this year. Maybe Indiana was going to be a one-year wonder. Obviously not at this point. They have a huge game this weekend at Oregon. We'll see exactly what Indiana is made of in that game. We'll also see this week what Illinois is made of, because they host Ohio State. And while those, I mean, they beat USC, they also got smoked by Indiana. What do some of these teams look like against their best teams? That game against Ohio State, it's very, very close to the 15-year anniversary. I was going to bring this up when we talked about it. I talked about our picks, but 15 years, almost 15 years to the day since Ohio State came into Wisconsin at night, ranked number 1. And obviously we all know what happened in that one. So a huge opportunity for the Illini to stake their claim and also potentially either really piss off Ohio State or something before they come to Camp Randall next weekend. So those are big games. But you're right. In terms of looking at it, I don't know that. But what if Wisconsin goes out and plays really well on Saturday? What if they go out and they play well, they win this game, and then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, maybe not Ohio State or Oregon, but Washington and Minnesota and perhaps Illinois, and maybe Indiana goes out and lays an egg up in Eugene, and all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying I don't want to just wipe away any chance Wisconsin has to win those games, because I certainly, while they did not play great last week, they took a step in the right direction. And can they take another step this Saturday? I'm not confident that it's going to happen. So maybe I'm sounding ridiculous at this point just because of what we've seen from Wisconsin so far. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying maybe we don't just jump and say those games are probably unlikely until we see what happens tomorrow night, because Saturday night's the biggest game on their schedule because of what they put into it.
Yeah,
right.
I certainly put the last game against Minnesota. I don't know which one I'd say is more.
How many push-ups were they doing all year or all off season?
Well, they also did many 24s. It's just that Minnesota won 24-7 and not 42-10. I think I'll always put Minnesota at the top because of the rivalry, because all those other reasons. But yes, I mean, these are the two protected rivalries when the Big Ten changed the scheduling model, and there's a reason for that. They are big, big deals. So, yeah, I mean, I think most people are just looking for a reason for optimism, and they've not given people that. And yes, there were steps in the right direction against Michigan. Not enough, but what can they do? What can they do Saturday night? And give the crowd a reason to support you too. 6 p.m. game, so sun's going to be down. I think people will, I don't know how many people will show up, but like, if you're a fan, this game is a really big deal for this program, and you want to put your best effort forward for those people.
It is homecoming, so I would imagine quite a few people are back, and maybe they will go to the game. I think there's going to be a lot of Iowa people there for sure, based on what happened last year, and based on when Iowa's good, they travel. And I certainly think, I would imagine, a healthy collection of black in the stands, black and gold in the stands on Saturday night. So we'll see. One player, offense, defense, that needs to play well, that needs to have a big game, and needs to, if Wisconsin's going to have a shot, Wisconsin's going to be in this one. Who is it on both sides?
Well, offensively, to me, it's the obvious one, which is Hunter Simmons, because I just really wonder how effectively Wisconsin is going to be able to run the ball here. They're averaging 3 yards a carry right now. They have not been able to establish anything. And I have to imagine Iowa's going to approach this game like, we're really good stopping the run. We are going to make you beat us through the air. We do not believe you can beat us on the ground. So what does Hunter Simmons have? Is he going to take some deep shots? Is he going to avoid that mistake that can change the course of the game because I anticipated being such a close game? I put a lot of it on him. That's not to say there aren't other pieces that are extremely vital, but I'm just sitting here wondering where are the yards coming from on the ground unless you can get some trickery going and outsmart Iowa.
What was the total Wisconsin allowed on the ground last year in this game?
329 yards, which is the most that the Badgers have given up on the ground since that Rose Bowl against Oregon. So that was a span of 13 seasons.
Iowa's allowed 347 yards on the ground in 5 games this year.
Yeah, they're 4th in the country in run defense, and Wisconsin's rushing offense, I believe, is 118th, something like that. It's not great. So, yeah, that's why I think Hunter Simmons has to play. You want to talk about at or above your God-given ability to continue the theme from Luke Fickell's discussion on Monday? Let's see what he's got.
Let's see what he's got. And if they drive down and have a great drive, and whether it's a field goal or a touchdown early on, and you bring in Danny O'Neal the next drive, you may hear some boos from the press box. I know you can't cheer in the press box. I know you can't be making noise in the press box, but that type of stuff just bothers me. I don't care what team it is. It could be Iowa, it could be Wisconsin, it could be Minnesota. You don't just because you have a plan that this is what it's going to be on the second drive of a game doesn't mean after the opening drive, you go right down the field, you bring in another guy. Just insane. Either way, they're probably going to do it. I'm sure they will, but I guess that's irrelevant. Defensively, who you got?
You know, my mind initially went to Ricardo Hallman just because I think he's really struggled, but what is going to be Iowa's strength here? I think they're going to try and pound the rock, and not in the way that John Gruden was talking about and Luke Fickell talked about a couple weeks ago. So it's hard for me to pick a specific player in the front seven. I think it's just the collective effort. Like, there's not one defensive lineman. I mean, maybe I could say, oh, well, Christian Allegro, who's played really well, needs to be able to step up and get a bunch of tackles, but it's not on one guy. So I think I have a harder time picking one person defensively because when you play Iowa, you have to win on the strength of everybody, you know? But I mean, you've got a specific player. Feel free to share.
No, I was just going to say about Iowa's rushing offense. Put up a bunch of yards against Albany, put up a bunch of yards against Massachusetts, had 100 yards had 131 against Iowa State, but just 3.3 a carry, had 92 against Indiana, 2.97 yards per carry, and at Rutgers, which Rutgers defense isn't very good, 160 on 4.2 yards per carry. This is not a amazing Iowa rushing offense. It's better than their passing offense, but it is not necessarily the same rushing group that they had a year ago, and they're obviously dinged up, and we'll see exactly how successful they are. Wisconsin, if they can stop the run, I think this game, there's not a chance it gets anywhere close to the over. If Wisconsin stops the run, if they stop the run, there's no chance it gets close to the over. So that to me is the paramount. And you can talk about front seven. I mean, I pick out a guy like Mason Reiger or Daryl Peterson or somebody up front, Ben Barton, whoever it is, to hold up and play big, as Luke Fickell would say, big boy football. They want and need to stop the run and force Iowa to throw the ball, something they could not do last year. We know that. And yes, so we'll get to our picks in a little bit. Anything else you want to hit on within this game at all?
No, I don't think so.
Also, trick plays. Trick plays or run your offense?
Which would I do? I mean, I know we've talked about this constant struggle that Jeff Grimes has had, but I think you got to put some trick plays into the playbook here. When do you run them, and which of those trick plays do you run? That's up for debate. I don't know. Offensively, I just don't know if Wisconsin has the horses right now to be able to go down the field and score without an occasional trick play. So that's where I'm at.
You know what? I don't necessarily think it is the trick plays themselves that are the issue. I think the timing is the issue, right? Like he hasn't just been able to marry up the timing for the most part. There were obviously a few plays against Middle Tennessee State that they were able to catch them off guard. But for the most part, they haven't been able to the timing of them hasn't been great. And it's not catching the defense off guard. And that's what's leading to, I would say, most of them not necessarily working very well. But I don't know that it's the actual plays themselves as much as it is the timing of those plays. So I think that'll be very, very important if they are going to have a shot here in the second half. And for me, it comes down to Wisconsin's defense stopping the run and Hunter Simmons being able to make some plays further than 10 yards down the field, which Wisconsin just been not very good at this year, especially against Power 4 teams. All right. Let's get into this in terms of Wisconsin's offseason, based not solely, but pretty heavily on what happened in Iowa City last year. You mentioned the rushing yards. It wasn't just that. The offensive line got manhandled. It was in the trenches getting punched in the face, and quite honestly, not answering the bell very often. And once they got down, it was brutal. And they spent a whole offseason focused on this game and, as you mentioned, Minnesota. But it's this game. And that, to me, is just underlines the importance of not just being competitive, but finding a way to win this one, because your entire offseason and much of what you did off the field was focused on this.
Absolutely, Zach. And I will start with the off the field because, yes, Wisconsin lost its last 5 games last season. You had the 2 close ones to Penn State and Oregon. You lost to Minnesota 24-7. You gave up 44 points to Nebraska and lost that series, the first game in that series in a decade plus. And yet it's the Iowa one that ultimately had this staff reevaluating what it needed to do to win games in the Big Ten, because Iowa ran for 329 yards. Sullivan passed it like 10 times. You knew it wasn't going to be a threat. You knew exactly what Iowa was going to do, and you couldn't stop a nosebleed. And I said this, I think, before, but every person who carried the ball for Iowa looked like they were a Heisman Trophy candidate. It was just embarrassing in a matchup that every year ought to be a dogfight, and you're completely out of it. So they overhauled the defensive front. They got much bigger. They bulked up with the few returning guys they had, and then they went to the portal and got 300-plus-pound dudes. And I think you've seen the difference here early on when it comes to stopping the run. Luke Fickell talked about it on Monday, that particular game a year ago against Iowa led to some of those changes. So that's one. But 2, it is the other thing. It is how you tailored your offseason conditioning, your entire offseason program. And Brady Collins, the strength and conditioning coach, made this a huge emphasis where the number 42 was incorporated in a lot of the things they did. And we saw it in spring practice. After practice, what were they doing? Like, was it 42 sit-ups or 42 push-ups? And there were other drills when they would be in the weight room doing stuff and they'd get to the end. They would do 42 of something and they would do 24 of something for the points they gave up against Minnesota. But really, it is that Iowa game. And I talked to Brady about this in the offseason, that he wanted it to get to the point where the guys were kind of like pissed off about having to do it, but understanding and accepting of why they were doing it so that it would translate when they got to this moment. And I asked Luke this week, how much do you think everything you did in the offseason matters in this moment? Because the team right now is struggling. And he said, I hope it matters. And I think that is another reason why the performance here will be so telling of this program, because if you play with that passion and energy and competitive spirit and all those other buzzwords that you showed to a degree against Michigan, then that is the steps forward that you need, and we'll see where the chips fall. But if you don't, after everything you put into this game and how you changed your defense and what you emphasized in training, then you just don't have a leg to stand on as a staff. So we'll see what Wisconsin's made of on Saturday night.
Yes, if you do not win this game and you put all of this effort into it, and then it doesn't pay off in the way you wanted it to, I don't know where you go from there. If you're the staff. Now, again, you have a whole, another month and a half left of the season. You've got 6 more games, but I don't know how you build this program back to what it wants to be if you can't come through on the thing that you focused your entire offseason on. And that's why, to me, it's the most important game, because yes, Minnesota at the end of the year, but I don't even know how you get to the Minnesota game if you lay an egg on Saturday night. If you do not play the type of football that you've talked about all offseason about playing, about putting the focus on this game, and then all of a sudden you get there on Saturday night and it just collapses, I don't know how you build it back. I don't know how you build these players back up, and I don't know how you get the fans back into this. It is that's why I think Saturday night's probably, at this point, the most important game of Luke Fickell's career at Wisconsin. I think, it just is. And maybe that is just every single game from now on, but this one, because of the effort that was put on it, it has to show up and it has to bear fruit.
Yeah, I don't think that's hyperbole, your statement, because there have been a lot of huge games. No question. They have lost a lot of those games, but this one is just a little bit different. They've not beaten Iowa since Luke got here. They lost in embarrassing fashion a year ago. And I also think there are degrees of a loss, which we've talked about. I mean, if you go toe to toe with them and you lose by a field goal, obviously it's not like a great moment for the program, but you put all your effort into it and you executed at a level that gave you a shot. That's different from what happened a year ago. And I certainly think Wisconsin will be in this all the way through. I don't expect what happened a year ago, but I don't think that's an unreasonable statement when you consider what's at stake for a variety of reasons. You don't have any trophies in your trophy case, so there's that. You haven't beaten Iowa. You've lost 3 in a row. If you lose this, I mean, you're losing at least 6 in a row, and you're looking for some semblance of momentum, and this is that game.
Yeah, they have not lost 9 straight games to Power 4 or teams that would have been Power 4 opponents since it was like a mix of like 1991 and 1990. That's what they're at right now. And if they don't win, you're right, it'll also be more than a year without a victory against a team from a Power 4 conference. And also a Big Ten, not being able to get a Big Ten win either. There's so much on the line for Wisconsin as a program, and I imagine they know this, but you're right. How many new guys are on this team right now?
40 plus.
Yes. But they all had to go through the exact same thing as the guys from last year had to go through. But, a lot of them, if we're being fair, a lot of them don't know exactly how this played out, especially along the defensive line. You got Ben Barton, you've got Daryl Peterson, and then it's a bunch of guys that probably don't know exactly what this game is going to look like, right? For the most part. There are some others, but they don't know what this game is. And you just hope that entire offseason, and I would imagine this week, has been just hammered home in their minds as well of the importance of this, because I don't want to hear, and I know I like Jake Chaney. I do. I think he was always really good to talk to and all of that stuff. But when he comes to the media room afterwards, after the Penn State game, and talks about the Oregon game, and he talks about how they never won a big game in his career, and they still have Nebraska and Minnesota after that. And I get where he was coming from. I get that. But guys got to understand that this is a big game. And if you win this one, it means something. And I think a lot of alumni probably are like, what are you talking about? You haven't won a big game. You beat Minnesota. You beat Iowa back in 21 during your time. This has to be a big game, and guys have to know that. And that would piss me off so much if I was a former player and I heard him say that, because these games absolutely are vital and huge and big, and you need to win them, and they need to know how important they are. Well, we'll see if they do. What?
No, I mean, I agree. I want to give him some grace for where they were in that moment, but completely understand. And now you're at a stage where you are below those teams. At a certain point, I think they won so consistently that, yes, it was a big game, but it didn't feel quite the same until you lost it. But think about when they lost to Minnesota, that first was 2018, was it? And then Chris Orr is talking about it, and you could feel the intensity and importance, and they came out the next year and they took care of business. And it's been a while since they've been able to do that, certainly against Iowa. So yeah, a lot on the line.
Yeah. I mean, it's a ton on the line for what you put your entire offseason on, and we'll see if they can get it done. But I know that former coaches, or when Paul Chryst was there, he would have whatever coach was and come up and talk about a rivalry. Usually it was the Minnesota game. I don't think Luke does that. I know he doesn't do that with Minnesota. I get that. But I feel like because there's so many new faces all the time, that is even more important, especially with the 20-plus true freshmen you have. They have to know the importance of it. And I think Wisconsin did everything they possibly could this offseason to make sure that people understood, the players understood the importance of it. And now they got to go out and play and see exactly what that looks like. So we'll see them on Saturday night. Anything else you wanted to hit on before we do get into our picks here?
Luke did talk on Monday about in his opening statement about a rivalry game, and this is what college football is all about. And to your point, there are so many people who don't understand what this is about. And so you have to do whatever you can to help them recognize the value in this game and the importance. And I mean, I think guys are going to put their best effort forward, but sometimes in certain matchups, you can feel the difference. You can feel how special it is. And those people need to understand what this means to this program.
And you also can't rely on the crowd to be that juice. What is it? BYOJ, bring your own juice.
Yeah.
Isn't that, I mean, that was you can't rely on them right now for good reason. You've given them no reason to support you at this point in terms of, I'm not talking about the entire fan base, but they need a little bit of evidence, a little bit of
play well. You have to play well early to get them into the moment.
Exactly. Right. People are walking into that stadium thinking we're going to see the same team that saw against Maryland. That's what I feel like a lot of people are probably expecting. And so you have to prove to them that is not who you are. That's not how this game is going to go, that you're going to fight and you're going to punch and you're going to scratch and claw and do anything possible to stay in this game and be in this game in the fourth quarter and find a way to win the game and give yourself a little bit of momentum jumping off into the rest of the season. This is a jump off point and opportunity that you don't get again, because the next two games are not ones that you want to be building confidence from. You want to be building confidence off of this one, moving into Ohio State next week. And who knows, right? Like if you find a way to win this one, who knows next week? I'm not going to pick Wisconsin against Ohio State, but if you were to win this one, at least you have a little bit of momentum and good feeling on that roster to at least go and try and play competitive against them. Something that you have not done against any Power 4 opponent this year, for the most part. Again, I know the Michigan game was not a blowout by any stretch, but build off of that build off of this even more into the next games. This such a huge opportunity on Saturday night to kind of right the ship and find a way to get people back on your side and back on the idea that there is improvement going on and you can feel good about it. Because if you don't, and it turns into the Maryland game again, I don't know how you turn it around. So find a way. If I'm Wisconsin, find a way. All right, let's jump into our picks here. And I went 4-3 last week. You went 3-4. And that leaves us 20-22 on the year for you and 18-24 on the year for me. So just 2 games separate 2 titans of college picks, college betting and gambling, just 2 titans of it. And so let's start with this one, Jesse. Nebraska traveling to Maryland. The Cornhuskers 6.5-point favorites. The exact favorite that was Washington. I should say the exact same number as Washington last week. Maryland jumped out to a 20-0 lead and lost 24-20, but they covered, so it's okay.
Yes. Good teams win, great teams cover. Although
exactly.
they didn't win, but at least they covered. Yeah, this is a tough one because it's 2 4-1 teams. Both quarterbacks are playing really well. I think Maryland's going to cover in this one at home. I just really like Malik Washington. And obviously Dylan Rail is doing exactly what you expected. But Washington's got 9 touchdown passes and 3 rushing touchdowns. And I think Maryland will be in this one late. So even if they don't win, I like the wiggle room.
Are you worried at all about them trying to bounce back from blowing a 20-0 lead at home?
It is not ideal. So another one of those we'll see what a program is made of moments. But I'm still going Maryland. I'm
so glad. I was so ready to tweet. Maybe Maryland's really good.
Yeah,
and that's why what happened against Wisconsin. And then I'm glad I didn't, because that would have been a little blow up in your face type of thing. I'm going to take Maryland. I don't know if they win, but I feel like they will hold on. Just Washington's offense. All of a sudden, the big passes and I should say the big plays in the passing game were huge. All right, Michigan off their huge win against Wisconsin at USC. USC is a 2.5-point favorite there.
I'm taking USC at home. Some of these numbers are inflated by blowouts against bad teams, but they've got the number 3 scoring offense in the country. I don't know. I mean, I know Wisconsin played hard a week ago. I wasn't all that impressed with Michigan, and I just think them going on the road is going to be trouble for them. So Trojans win and cover.
Yeah, I don't think USC's defense is very good.
Could be a lot of points.
And Michigan has gone in on the road, been very, very good on the road, right? They went to Oklahoma. They've been in big environments on the road before. They played Oklahoma tough. They did go to Nebraska and get a win. So I don't know. It's a tough one. I think it's a tough one for me. But I'm gonna take Michigan in that one. Oklahoma and Texas facing off in the Red River rivalry. Oklahoma, a 1.5-point favorite in that one. That game being played in Dallas, or I should say, in Dallas. At the
I'm gonna go with Oklahoma on this one. 2 very good defenses. OU's undefeated. They're number 2 in the country in total defense. I think Texas is number 5. And I know there's been a lot of talk about Arch Manning and what he hasn't been. This is a big moment, obviously, for him and for Texas's program. But I think Oklahoma is going to go in there and cover.
Same. Alabama on the road at Missouri. The Tide coming off an impressive home win over Vanderbilt, covering very, very late, going forward on 4th and 3 and scoring a touchdown. I don't normally cheer at home for games that I don't care about, but potentially jumped off the couch and was given a round of applause to Alabama. I honestly thought they were going to kick the field goal. Instead, they went for it and scored a touchdown. So either way, it worked for them to cover. But they are 3.5-point favorites at number 14, Missouri.
I like Missouri in this one. I feel like Alabama has played so many big games already, like games that you really had to get up for, that it never stops. Obviously, you had Florida State. I won't necessarily say that Wisconsin was a big game for them, but at least it's, one of the games of the week that week. And then you have to play Georgia and Vanderbilt was playing really good football. And so I look at this and say, Missouri, this is a huge moment for them. They're playing great so far. I think they're 4th in the country in total offense. Their running back is number 1 in the country in rush yards per game, and he's got 9 touchdowns. So I think Missouri's going to get it done.
No mention of the great Bo Pribula.
Bo Pribula, yes, he's throwing. What is that? What, I have 240 yards passing a game. So they've got a lot going for them.
Remember when we talked about which one would you rather have, Billy Edwards or Bo Pribula in the offseason, like leading into the year? Which one would you rather have at this point?
Well, one of them's been healthy. I like that. I don't know.
What?
I'm not going to say anything about like Billy because I've seen him for 3 full series. Obviously, it's not like I think the offense would be magically fixed, but we haven't got to see him. I don't know.
That's accurate. He went, you know what else is accurate? Bo Pribula, he went 26 for 29 in his last game against UMass. So that's pretty good. I feel like that game significant, and I'm gonna take Missouri at home as well. A couple huge ones in the Big Ten. Indiana, ranked 7th in the country, unbeaten, headed on the road to face number 3 Oregon. The Ducks are only 7.5-point favorites in that one.
Yeah, a year ago, the knock on Indiana was they never played anybody, and then when they did, it didn't go well for them. Right. Obviously, Indiana has played Illinois and destroyed them. This is a tough place to play, but I think Indiana is going to cover here, and I expect a bunch of points. These are 2 top 6 offenses. This, to me, looks like it's going to be the most entertaining game of the weekend.
I have come around on the idea that Kirk Scinetti is just a really, really good coach. And it's not like I ever thought he wasn't, but I thought last year was a little bit of smoke and mirrors because they didn't really play anybody, as you said. But they did beat the hell out of Illinois, and they have an opportunity here to take out Oregon. The rest of their games, Jesse, I mean, if they win this one, they may be undefeated at the end of the year. They are versus Michigan State, versus UCLA, at Maryland, at Penn State's obviously a little bit of a toss-up, Wisconsin, and Purdue. They'll be favored in probably all of those games. I guess we'll see what happens with Penn State the rest of the way. But coming off that loss to UCLA, it's tough to see Penn State beating Indiana, though they'll probably get up for that one and all that good stuff. But if they win this one, very good chance to be undefeated, very good chance to be the Big Ten champion, or at least get an opportunity to play Ohio State. You would assume at this point, Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. So all that said, give me Oregon. Yeah, give me Oregon at home. They have been really, really good, and it's at home. If the game was Indiana, I think at Indiana it might be a little bit different, but at home, give me Oregon. The other big one, Ohio State, as I mentioned, 14.5-point favorites at number 17, Illinois.
A couple weeks ago, Ohio State had to play at Washington, and I think the spread was single digits. I don't know if it was almost 10, and I felt like Washington was going to hang around, and they did. And yet, Ohio State won that game 24-6. They are so good, and I don't know what to make of Illinois because of that loss to Indiana. But I just think they'll hang around long enough to cover here. I think Ohio State is going to win, but I will take the points with Illinois.
Same. It's a big number. And as I said, I feel like, again, if this was in Columbus, it might be different, right? Would not probably feel great about it. But Brett Bielema has a way to get up for the Ohio States of the world. And as I said, it's going to be about maybe a few days shy of 15 years to the day that Ohio State came into Camp Randall and Brett Bielema's team beat them. I think that Wisconsin team was better than this Illinois team, but he's got the opportunity to do the same thing here. And the final one, Wisconsin taking on Iowa at Camp Randall. The Hawkeyes are 3.5-point favorites. As I mentioned before, first time they've been a favorite in Madison since 1997.
This is where the rubber meets the road for Wisconsin here. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, and maybe it's because we cover this team every day, every week. it's hard for me to have a lot of optimism right now, even though I know they took steps forward against Michigan. I don't know what I can trust. I think that's the hard part here. And I know that you could say the same thing about Iowa. They're 3-2. It's not like they're 5-0 with those wins against Iowa State and Indiana, but I think Iowa gets it done. I think Iowa wins 13-10. So that means Wisconsin will cover. Not that that matters to anybody, but between the two, I suppose I have more faith in Iowa right now.
I wanted to go 13 as well.
You can.
I was going to say 13-6. I just don't have a ton of confidence in Wisconsin's offense to be able to move the ball.
Yeah.
I do think Wisconsin's defense, all the things they did this offseason were geared towards this game, specifically on the defensive side. And so I feel that what they've done to this point, Iowa is averaging right around 175 yards rushing per game, but the passing offense has been lax. That's what Wisconsin has really, really struggled at so far this year, to stop the pass. I don't envision them dropping back Gronowski 30 times just because Wisconsin can't stop the pass. But I think you're right. I think it's going to be a low scoring one. I'll go 13-6, and we'll see. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. For Luke Fickell's future, for the era of Luke Fickell football at Wisconsin, it has to be a win. I just not confident whatsoever that it actually will be. So we'll see. We'll find out Saturday night at Camp Randall, 6:00 kick, and then we'll be back to talk about it the next day. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is, Jesse Temple from Badger Connect. You've been listening to The Camp.